Hi, I'm Gale Banks. This morning, my Facebook messages were going nuts. Have you seen the video? Have you seen the video? The hooligan video, the diesel, the this, the that. I'm going, what are these guys down in Long Beach up to? What's going on? Well, apparently, they're putting LBZ Duramax diesel with compound turbos in a 5th-gen Camaro in hopes of going 200 miles an hour. I think that's completely doable. We put a Cummins 6 in a truck back in 2001 and went 222. What the hell is this all about? Maybe it's just the Camaro. So apparently the episode everybody wants me to watch has something to do with a dyno. You gotta see the dyno session. So I haven't seen it. I'm gonna watch it with you right now. Well, right off, I see some guys I know. First of all, sitting at the dyno console is Mike Lefevre. Mike came to me virtually as a kid and worked for me down in San Gabriel in my old speed shop. Then there's Guy Tripp. Guy Tripp owns SoCal Diesel. I sponsored him in a 4-banger circle car that he ran over here at Irwindale. I see an engine through the glass, and I see an intercooler. I see a couple of turbos. I see an air intake on one of the turbos. It's blowing into the second turbo, so it's a compound. There's no intercooling between the first and second turbo, so you're asking to melt the compressor right out of the second turbo. Then I see an intercooler. It's air to air. I don't see anything blowing across it to cool it. And there appears to be exhaust in the dyno room. This I gotta see.
Following along on this build, we have a 5th-gen Camaro, and we have...
Looks like Edelbrock's involved here.
Shoving this, we're trying to go 200 miles per hour. We just had the first fire up with the engine at PPE, had to make some necessary changes.
Okay, so apparently PPE has something to do with this.
Performance, and they have to make us a custom flywheel. We are going to take care of all the heat stuff.
Okay.
This diesel's going to build a bunch of heat. We have a really tight engine bay.
Nice looking Camaro, caged up. Okay, they're going to Redline Performance for dyno testing. I think that's a Sandcar, guys, right? I don't know how you support a diesel. If you, I wonder how many diesels they've dynoed.
Hopefully everything works out.
There's Guy Tripp.
We got Guy from SoCal
Recognize
Diesel.
him.
Do 2 tunes, right?
All right.
Stupid and safe.
Perfect.
Oh, they're going to have 2 tunes.
We can do that.
Stupid and safe. Okay.
And the cool thing about the diesel is we can give you a switch.
This always starts with, how did you rig the engine? It has to do with turbo matching, really killer charge air cooling, lowest temperature into the intake manifold, highest air density. If it smokes, there's not enough air.
Guys, make a bunch of power with all these
So it looked like they had, well, if Edelbrock's in this, then they must be running Edelbrock heads. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So he says he's going to lean on it. I hope he means that literally, because with diesels, lean is safe.
So on a gas motor, we are a air-regulated motor. So we're flowing a bunch of air, and we're always trying to match.
Oh, we're talking about air here.
Diesel, we got to stand on our head. It's completely 180 degrees. It's upside down. It's a fuel-regulated motor. So when we want the diesel motor to do something, we just add fuel. The air comes along with it. So
when we want the diesel motor to do something, we just add fuel, and the air comes along with it. Come on, Guy. You're an airflow guy. I hope you get the air-fuel ratio right.
Power out of the fuel.
And it should not belch any black smoke.
Camaro, and it's just covered in black smoke. We're doing something right.
You are, in fact, doing something right.
You got to make sure you've got the air before you put the frickin' fuel in. You don't want to kill the engine finding the right air-fuel ratio. That's so lame, I can't even believe it. Yeah, absolutely no intercooler between compressor stages. Got one big MAF sensor, which I'm going to submit.
Where are they?
Probably isn't enough if this thing's making the right airflow. That MAF sensor looks like too small. You see what is that air filter? Oh, the first gross mistake is the air filter. That's a throttle in its own respect. the air density, the air pressure in the room is going to be greatly reduced by that little chicken air filter. Unbelievable. I hope they have a lot of fan in that dyno room to get to cool air to that air filter. I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing blowing air through that intercooler core. And that intercooler core, it's adequate for probably a 2-liter diesel. And you've got a compound turbocharged, almost 7-liter diesel. Or maybe it's over 7 liter.
24 pounds?
I don't expect to see them or hear them talk about manifold air density. And oh my God, look at how small that freaking intercooler is. Oh my God, you've got 2 corks in the system. I could find probably another 150 horsepower just by making the air filter and the charged air cooler correct. And probably another 50 to 100 by putting a charged air cooler, or intercooler in this case, between the first and second compressor. That's why they're called intercoolers. And you know, this is an aftercooler. What's with all the smoke? Oh my God. Wait a minute. This thing is, it's eating its own waste product.
What was that, 35?
This is like one of my dogs out in the yard, and don't pick that up for God's sakes. Oh my God.
Both, okay.
There's no exhaust line out of the dyno cell. Ah. Jesus Christ. Here we go again. I see what looks like air in and air out. Maybe they just don't have the system on.
Want some more?
We always want
They're
more.
correcting the horsepower.
They're going to be safe.
They're using a correction factor
50 pounds.
that does not apply to diesel engines, number one.
4 pounds of torque.
And
Mike says if we need to reach for more, we need to add more fuel.
they're 750 horsepower. They've got compound turbos. Okay.
Everything looks good. I mean, that's the baby tune, so.
Okay, that's the baby tune. He says that's the baby tune. How much smoke is the badass tune going to make? Come on.
I'm not focused.
Just kind of looking around.
I'm trying to look at everything. So I'm watching the torque, I'm watching the oil pressure, and I'm watching the boost mainly because that's
Mike's talking about he's the data acquisition. There is no data acquisition. He's watching all these things.
blowing off. It's not blowing oil all over the
Oh my
place. or
God.
water. That's why
This is how we did it down in St. Gabriel back in the 60s. All right, here's the bottom line. The horsepower you measure on the dyno, the observed horsepower, they're down in Anaheim. Probably a little better than it would be here. But that's the horsepower you get. Correcting it to some standard to get a bigger number is bullshit. So it sounds like they're correcting it, I assume he means by STD, to the old J607 correction factor we used on gasoline engines way back in the day. It greatly inflated the horsepower number. So we never correct a diesel. We just know what we observe here, and we know what we can do as altitude increases from here. But we base all our predictions on the observed number. What the hell's with the smoke? The engine is... Boy, those dyno runs are awfully short.
1,300, call it 1,385 foot-pounds. 1,385 is a good average. And
1,380?
967 is a peak power number.
967 for
Is
power.
what the standing mile's a little tougher than most people think. So.
Now, Mike is saying standing mile's a little tougher than most people think. They're going to El Mirage. They're at 967 and 1,300 foot-pounds of torque. We can figure out the RPM from that. But we just made 912 and 1,300 and some, almost 1,400 pound-feet of torque. And that was at 3,400.
Bumped up a little bit of fuel.
Oh, they're going to bump the fuel now. Here's the deal. What's the exhaust gas temperature? Anytime you see smoke, you know you've got elevated exhaust gas temperature. So 1163, 885 on horsepower.
Here, and you look at boost, we're at 60 pounds of boost.
60 pounds of boost.
9, 10 pounds of boost, there's a huge difference.
Huge difference,
Yeah,
sure.
So that's where the power and the
I'm
torque
wondering
are
if some of that's starting to loosen up.
Well,
I've seen a lot more smoke out of that as
at.
well.
Ah.
Same thing.
I saw a lot more smoke out of that as well. That's the statement.
The boost. I'm setting off at closer to 4,200 RPM, so I'm gonna, it's not recording. at
4,200
it's only
RPM.
recording to where I tell it to, so I'm gonna bump it another couple hundred.
Okay, they're going to go for some more here. Here's the deal. If you're going to run a little over a mile from a standing start at El Mirage, that's going to take a bit of time. Not the 3 seconds, 4 seconds, or 5 seconds that you're seeing here. The question is, will the engine live that long? Because anytime you're blowing smoke and then you're associating a horsepower number with that, my only question is, do you have a time delay fuse on that hand grenade? Otherwise, that sumbitch is going to blow up in your face. Okay, making some RPM there. It's making less horsepower with more boost.
Yeah,
Where's it leaking from?
everywhere.
Oh, it's leaking from
Both
everywhere.
wastegates, yeah.
Okay.
Both wastegates and the rear.
We've got massive boost leaks.
Not-
Comes up.
Okay, let's fix the boost leaks and see if the power comes up.
We are well over enough to meet our goal, which would be 200 miles per hour in the standing mile. We have a couple boost leaks. It's kind of my fault in some of the ways, but we're going to fix those before we make the run, and we're good here.
Dude, you should have made the run right where that engine is. You should have supported it like it would be in the car. Air, intercooling, fuel rate, all of it. You make the run in the dyno cell. This thing is starving for air. It's got plenty of fuel. They're filling the dyno cell with unburned fuel because there's not enough air for complete combustion in chamber. This is not how you do diesel. It's never been the right way to do diesel. But at the end of the day, you've got the right parts in the wrong combination, and you also have a few parts that don't support the program. The air intake system that's in the car, I hope, is a lot better than what's on the dyno. The intercooling system totally sucks. Maybe I'm not as fun to watch as these guys, because I've enjoyed watching this. It's kind of a trip to see Guy trip. Again, I haven't seen him in years. And we got a stock L5P, same size engine as this, unless this thing's a stroker, in dyno cell 2. It's making 912 horsepower on one turbo with no smoke, and we're going for 1,000 horsepower. What's with all this adventure? For the next episode of this, you don't need to blow me up in the morning. I mean, I need my sleep. I got to have my beauty rest. So, bottom line here is there's a bunch of you guys out there who know how it's done correctly. And I'll keep laying that down for you until I'm in the ground. There's no charge. Show it to these guys one day, will you?